I showed the Salt of the Earth every year. I taught at St. John's. It's a Catholic school on the corner of 12th and Aho. And I was the most fortunate person in the world because nobody, I taught Chicano studies for 20 years and I never had a word of censure from anyone. And I'd wonder, it's in black and white. And kids, something's in black and white, I don't want to see that. But, they were always good. But one year I showed it, and it was right at the end of the day. And we didn't even have time to discuss it. And the kids were filing. I was saying goodbye, till the next day. And this kid said to me, "That's the best movie I ever saw." And that's, they're 13, 14 years old. So they're interested in a whole lot of other things. But look at the importance of teaching something cultural and the bravery of the men and women of that strike. Now, I didn't know whether the kid's father was a miner, but when she stopped and she said, "Best movie I ever saw," and it, as many times as I showed it, it just stirred you from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. But what is it that makes you care so much?
Yeah, I guess it's what you're against, you see all through the years. So it's imperialism and wherever it rears its head. Caesar had said, you can get something from everybody. He said, picketing's, up here. Then you're going to get people who are not going to picket, but they'll have a house meeting. Or they'll give you money, which is probably the lowest thing because, that's not much of a commitment. All that has to happen to a person is when something hits her or his life, and that can just revolutionize a person, whether, they were trying to go to a picket or demonstration and they got arrested, or the cops stopped them, they got beaten by the cops. I'm a student of Irish history, and the prison experience produced some of the great leaders in the struggle against the Brits, because when Caesar put out that call in whatever year it was, and people just left their lives and went and did that. I got in, I had a little orange Volkswagen Bug, and I got in it, and I drove to California and amazingly found the headquarters in the Tehachapi Mountains. And so I find that recruiting was of different people. A lot of people were white and a lot of people were middle class, and they wanted to do something.
Did you come to Ampty in
71.
71?
Well, at least I came to Arizona. I was in Phoenix for a while, because we were recalling the governor, and we just collected signatures all day. That was it. 7 days a week we went to the malls. And so I know I did that in Phoenix and also here. But then when the 2 farm workers were killed during the strike, Caesar called it off and everybody went to Chicago on the boycott. And there was a guy named Leroy Chatfield who was a wonderful organizer, and we were part of the Southern California group. And I called him up and I said, and I didn't know how to say it to him, and he seemed to be very straight-laced and no nonsense, Leroy. And I said, I met somebody, and I don't want to go to Chicago because that would be the end of it. And I really think that there's something there, and I'm stumbling over all my words, you know. And Leroy said, I think it's a good idea that you stay.
Frank Salas, Nancy was doing at the Safeway on Swan and Grant, I guess it was. And Frank said, come on, I want you to meet the new farm worker organizer in town, Nancy. So I remember marching up to her picket line, being introduced to Nancy, and a second later she said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, well, really not very much. He said, how would you like to be part of a skit? I said, okay. And then she told me that I would be playing a priest and marrying a grower and a teamster.
The sweetheart country.
And this was on the bed of a pickup truck in front of the Teamsters Hall, with the benefit of television. Okay, so here I was, borrowed black frock with the collar, of course, and my own straw hat. Grower, do you take this Teamster to be your
Sweetheart.
you know, till death do you part, and vice versa. And in the midst of this, the president of the Teamsters, what was his name, McCollum or something?
Bill
like that?
McCollum.
Racketeer, if there ever was one, he comes out and in flames, you can see it in his face, and he charges at me literally and said, Father, after what you've done today, I ain't going to give another nickel to the church as long as I live. I can add that Nancy and I are the only atheist ex-nun combination, maybe in the Southwest, maybe in the Southeast, maybe in the Northwest, and the rest of the country, something like that. It doesn't happen too often. When Nancy and I got married, Caesar was told that I was a communist. He said, good, he'll let her work. And Caesar always thought he loved nuns, ex-nuns, anyone who had that discipline, because they worked and they were very useful.
So what Fidel said, he didn't have much use for priests, but he said the nuns, they're different. They never stop working. Well, I just thought of the older man, and we gave him a ride home. It was during the strike. And of course they were using the communist thing, and of course this is, very related to Chicanos because of the godless communists. So this guy was just so honest and he was just, he said two things that were really funny. I guess he knew that I had been in the convent. And so he said to me, now you won't believe this, in all simplicity, he said, so how would you compare your second husband to your first? Meaning Jesus being the first and John being the second. And then, as we're driving back to Tucson, he said, well, I agree with everything that John is saying about safety, and he went on, but he says, so if he's a communist, I guess I'm a communist too. And I thought it was just, really something, because the last thing that this guy would have imagined himself 6 months before was a communist. And he's saying, I agree with everything that John says, so I must be a communist. It was just the cutest thing. And that was the follow-up to how do you like your second husband compared to your first.
Yeah, lucky you didn't answer it.